I guess I could probably get around to cutting this line to length. So this is going to have to sit on the, this goes to that fitting like this one here that's on the lower pump. I'm going to have to double check. I'm pretty sure that goes up to this fitting here. Matter of fact, I'm almost positive that's what that does. But I gotta do it in a way so that this line doesn't kink. So I'm gonna leave it a little extra long. And just have that loop sit down lower. And hopefully that's not gonna cause any kind of fuel flow issue. I don't think so. I think that's a pump, it's really gonna be pressure. Alright, so it's a little hard to see because of this cable's in the way, but essentially I've got room to go behind here and hook on the line that goes to here. And then this line goes to there where it's supposed to. But you see I've got this loop that dips down kind of low, but by doing that I'm not kinking this hose at all. If I try and make this shorter, what's going to happen is I'm going to end up with a kink in the hose over here, and it's going to cause a restriction that I want to avoid. So I think that's going to work out fine because there isn't really anything else that goes in here that's going to be, this isn't going to be in the way of anything else. Next up, I got this line that comes out of the top here of this cap, has to come up and go to this fitting on the carburetor. This might end up being back here more, I don't know. Well, I might have to put some line on here and then mount the starter just to see how my clearance is going to be. That looks like I'm going to have plenty of clearance if I do it that way. Again, if I do it too short, it's going to kink a little bit here. If I leave it just a hair longer, I can leave a little bow in here, which isn't going to hurt anything and will not cause any flow restriction problems. Should have put a little lube on those barbs. There are several different easy to use remedies for this. Alright, so I had intentionally kept this line and hadn't thrown it out yet so that I could know that I had this plastic clamp that mounts somewhere. And I think, if memory serves me, which I'm going to probably just verify to be safe, but this one goes down to this pump here, and it went up to a 90-degree fitting that I had to trash that this inserted into. It's a special fitting. So I think what I did was I took this screw out on this terminal block to take this clamp off, and then I think I just put the screw back for safekeeping. But I gotta double check and see which line. This, let's see. What do we got left here? We got this line's going to come down and go to the pump. And then that leaves me two more lines. One is going to go down to this bottom, very bottom fitting on this carburetor. And then one of them is going to go down. This one right here, I think, goes to the fuel inlet. But you know what? It's going to take me a minute to check that out. Don't want to do... You know, the problem is if I cut all of these lines to the proper length and then I get something completely wrong, well, then I've wasted all that hose. Alright, I went back and looked at my videos and confirmed this line right here on the top of the pump is going to go over to the bottom carburetor here, And then this of these two here, this lower one is going to be the one that's going to go to the fuel inlet. And then this one is the one that goes up to here, which is, I was trying to figure out where the heck this clamp goes on, but I couldn't quite find the exact video. And I know that this is definitely, this line goes here, but even in the video, this is already undone. And I don't remember undoing this, so I don't know if this was loose on here when I got the motor. Also, if I line everything up, it doesn't look like it's possible for this to, well, I guess it could have went right there. Let's see. Yeah, I guess it could have went right underneath that screw right there. Matter of fact, that screw, well, that's weird though. That's the terminal screw. That's where the basically you're going to interface the connections going to the alternator to the rest of the motor. I kind of find it hard to believe that they would have put this there, so that doesn't really make sense. Here might have been, you know, more logical, but there's no way that that went there, and there's no way that it went, yeah, there's no way it went there either. So this clip, I'm going to have to leave it off for now because it's still a mystery to me. Alright, just going to put a little smear of motor oil on the barbs there. Makes that job a lot easier. Alright, see if I can get these choke butterflies back on correctly. I didn't take the spring off, which is good. That's one less thing I have to figure out. It's pretty obvious that these are going to both hinge on, hinge on these studs on the carburetor like this, okay? And then I remembered that the this loop on the spring here was underneath this nut right here. So let's see. If I push this down under here like this, that's going to naturally want to keep the butterflies open, which is what the spring is supposed to do. So I think that's as simple as that. The camera battery died before, but the only thing I did was I put this plate back on. And I remembered that this electrical cable goes under here, but I haven't tightened that down yet because I might end up replacing that one. So there's a funky kind of washer on here. I think that's it. I think it just goes like that. And then these are the covers. I cleaned these off because they had oil residue on them that in turn over time dust got stuck to. So these just got washed. You don't want to use solvent on these because they're plastic. Alright, so it looks like I'm going to put the retaining nuts on first. So these are kind of like self-locking nuts because you can't just tighten them all the way down. So right there you can see that's binding. I don't want that, so I want that to move freely. Now, I remember when I was taking this apart, I was baffled by the purpose of this this whole spring-loaded deal here. And I remember thinking to myself that when I put this back together, I'm going to tighten it to the point where it's not impinging on the operation of the free operation of the butterflies here. So, in other words, if I push on this, see right there, it's catching the butterfly. So I don't want it in that far. I wish I had a better idea of what was good on this, but I'm gonna go with that for the lower one. I think that'll work. Now I'm going to screw in this drip tray before I forget about it. Alright, so I'm putting the starter back in, and I'll tell you, this nut on this side is a pain in the butt, because this nut right here basically is held captive in a little void in the casting, and that's what keeps it from turning. But there's nothing to keep it from falling out of the back of that casting, so if it's not in the exact right position, you're going to put the bolt in. The bolt pushes the nut out, and then it falls over, laying in a little abyss back there that you can't really see. The flywheel off is a piece of cake. You get full access to the back of that. So what I do is I reach in, I hook it. If it falls over, I hook it with my little pick tool here, and then I kind of guide it in with my finger so that when it falls in, it falls standing up, and then I stick my finger in there and hold the back of the nut as I tighten the bolt until I feel the bolt start to grab it. Once the bolt starts to thread, then I can basically let go, and the bolt's going to pull it in. I'm not going to over tighten that right now because I'm not positive whether or not this is how I want this rotated, because I've got this connection here for the starter cable from the solenoid. I don't remember where that's going to be oriented. There's also on the starter, there's this little boss right here, this little corner piece, and I don't recall whether or not there was something that went in there. That actually, I don't even think that has a hole in it. No, I don't know what that is. Might be that they use this starter for more than one application, and maybe on some other application that's important. You know, it makes you think that that would have something to do with keeping this from spinning. Clamping pressure alone is what I was relying on this whole time. But I wonder if I'm missing the point here. Maybe there's something else that is supposed to gauge this. I also notice I'm pinching my lower rubber mount there. This is not in the position it's supposed to be. The starter's actually tilted like this. If I loosen this up, get something to pry this. Oh, I bet you I know what the problem is. Where are my plastic rings? Bet you they're not in there. Does anybody remember the plastic rings? I didn't until just now. Took the original, well, the starter was missing. That's right. When I got this, there was no starter in it. But remember, I found that there's that extra part number, and when I was out at the dealer and he sold me the rubber mounts that I ended up not needing because the used starter came with rubber mounts on it. There were 2 plastic rings. There was 2 part numbers, and when he said he had them, I took them, and they ended up being plastic rings. And I'm now convinced more than ever that the purpose of the plastic rings is to make life easier on installation of this. I put the plastic rings that sit on here, and the plastic rings will slide on here. Why didn't I have those in there? Did I decide that they were too much problem? Aha! Mystery solved. When I got the used starter in and it had rubber mounts on it, I realized I didn't need these brand new rubber mounts I had bought. So I took them off the starter and put them back in the bags with the intention of actually putting them on eBay at some point. And lo and behold, when I pulled them off, I neglected to take my plastic washers off. So it's a good thing I hadn't gotten rid of these yet, because I probably would have sent them to the buyer with these extra parts that are not, they have their own separate part number. They don't come with the rubber collars. Well, that's, for once, my procrastination or downright laziness in getting around to listing these on eBay has resulted in my favor. Oh, that's interesting. That one's, wait a minute, why am I missing? Well, there's one. Where's the other one? Oh, there was only one. That's right. There was only the one. There weren't 2. That's why the diameter is so big on that one. Right. Was the diameter identical on these 2 things? I think they are. Never mind. Disregard. Son of a gun. Alright, so I'm betting it's the top here is where this washer's going to go to help slide it in. Hopefully. See if I can't get this darn thing in here before I have to leave. Yeah. That ain't gonna happen. I gotta take this clamp off again. There you go, I think that's it. That looks good. Oh, stinker. Banging on it, knock that nut over again. There we go. Guess I better tighten up this flywheel before I forget. So I was just going to put the whole ignition coil bracket and solenoid assembly back in there, and then I remembered that the one of the bolts actually goes through and helps hold in the fuel inlet connector. So I think maybe I got to take a look at that. Alright, well, the way that this valve assembly is supposed to come apart to be serviced, because there's an O-ring inside there and the other parts, is you unscrew this fitting on the hose in the back, and those parts are supposed to just come out. The other thing that's interesting is a lot of the ones that I've seen have a 90-degree fitting right here on the back. And the way that the fuel line is, a 90-degree fitting might not be a bad idea. Maybe I'll change this, because this came right off of the hose, so this is going to be junk when I take it out anyways. Wow. That just, the wrench cammed out rather than, that's the soft brass fitting. Completely lost its shape. Let's see. Try it one more time. Nope, that wants to stay. I'm gonna have to use some heat. Just in case the components in there are spring loaded and they're gonna come popping out, I'm gonna wait till it cools off.